I'm Leo London. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to do something a little bit different. No deck profile, no nothing like that. Some of my cards are not here yet, so we're still waiting till next week. We're going to do 10 cards, 10 pendulum related cards that everyone forgets about. At least I've never seen anybody try and use them. And we're going to go through what they do and see if there's any applicable use for them. But as always, join the Facebook group. Search Yugi Leo, join up. We talk about all kinds of decks, pendulum stuff. But for now, let's just get into it. I talked about 2 honorable mentions. I do see people try and use these ones when they're just getting in. Pendulum Paradox. Pick up 2 monsters with different names but the same pendulum scale from the extra deck. Add them to your hand. And Amazing Pendulum. If you have no cards in your pendulum zones, add 2 face-up magicians pendulum monsters with different names from your extra deck to your hand. I see people try and use these all the time when they're just getting into pendulum, and they quickly realize that it's just too situational. It's too narrow. First one we're going to talk about is Pendulum Oscillation. If your opponent has 2 cards in the pendulum zones, target those 2 cards. While both targets are in their pendulum zone, you can pendulum summon using their pendulum scales this turn, but only from the extra deck. Okay, so if you could just pendulum summon from your hand, this would actually be okay in a pendulum dependent format, but with it needing to be strictly from the extra deck, it is not particularly great. Number 2 has a huge wall of text. It is Pendulum Dimension. I still think that this might, if it wasn't slow, this would be a much better card. But if you special summon any of these monsters using a pendulum monster as material, while this card is already face up in your spell and trap zone, you can activate the appropriate effect. You cannot apply the same effect of Pendulum Dimension for the rest of the turns, but you can use them all. Fusion. Special summon 1 monster from the deck with the same original level as that fusion monster in defense position but negate its effects. Synchro. Add 1 polymerization card from your deck to your hand. Xyz. Take 1 tuner from your deck with an equal or lower level than the Xyz monster's ranked and add it to your hand. Special summon it. Or special summon it. This could be good in a deck that has access to all 3 very easily, like DDDs, for example. Yeah. Up next, Pendulum Shift. Target 1 card in either player's pendulum zone and declare a pendulum scale from 1 to 10. This turn, the card becomes, that number becomes the pendulum scale. So this can be used offensively and defensively. So defensively, for some reason, if I put 2 high scales in, maybe I needed both effects, and I draw a Pendulum Shift, I would be able to shift Harmonized Magician to 1 and then be able to summon my Astrograph Sorcerer. And I would be much joyed in doing so. Again, in a pendulum-dependent format, this isn't the worst play in the world, but when your opponent attempts to set their pendulum scales, you flip up this card and you match the pendulum scales so they are unable to pendulum summon anything at all. And yeah, effectively ending a turn of somebody who's dependent on that. Up next, Pendulum Storm. Destroy as many cards in the pendulum zones as possible. Then you can destroy 1 spell or trap on the field. So ideally, you would use this to pop your opponent's scales and then destroy an additional trap card. Yeah, I don't think it's used simply because, again, it's far too situational, and you could use it to pop your own scales for your own effects. I would say this is one of the better ones, along with Pendulum Dimension. I would say it's one of the better ones. It's just, again, in a pendulum-dependent format, you can make this work. Up next, Soul Pendulum. I was so excited at the prospect of this card, and then I actually got to read how it works. You can target 2 cards in your pendulum zone. Change each target's pendulum scale by 1. You can only use this effect of Soul Pendulum once per turn. Each time your pendulum monster is pendulum in the field, gain 300 attack for each monster. For each counter on this card, you can remove 3 counters from this card during your main phase. this turn, you can conduct one pendulum summon of a monster or monsters in addition to your normal pendulum summon. So after 3 turns, you'd be able to pendulum summon twice. By that time, in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, the game is well over, most likely. Yeah, this is never going to see play, I don't think. It's just far too slow. If this was a same turn effect, broken, probably banned, but no, far too slow. And I would say justifiably slow because, again, if it was same turn, it's nuts. Next, Echo Oscillation. You can target one card in your Pendulum zone, destroy it, then draw one card. You can only use this effect of Echo Oscillation once per turn. Again, it's too slow and a little too situational, but you could use this in, a pendulum-dependent format, or you could even experiment with this in a deck, although I don't recommend it. For example, I have Black Fang Magician in scale, my Astrograph Sorcerer is in the graveyard. During my opponent's turn, I pop my scale, I special summon my Astrograph Sorcerer, or you could pop their scales just to disrupt them. But again, it's just, it's too slow, too situational. Yeah, again, right format, right deck, you might be able to get some benefit from this, but it's not going to be worth its spot over like Pendulum Hole. Out of all of them, I would say this is one of the best ones. If this, again, a pendulum-dependent format, this is game-ending. It's crazy. When a monster would be pendulum summoned, negate the pendulum summon, and if you do, shuffle those monsters back into the deck. Game over. If you're playing a pendulum deck and all of your stuff gets shuffled back into the deck, you are screwed. Game over. And it's like response trap. It's very fast. It's pretty nuts. They would need something as fast as Solemn Judgment to negate it. But again, pendulum dependent format, and we haven't seen one of those in quite a long time. Pendulum Switch. You can target one card in your Pendulum Zone, special summon it. You can target one Pendulum Monster in your Pendulum Zone, place that Pendulum Monster in your Pendulum Zone. You can only use one Pendulum Switch effect per turn. Pretty simple effect. So in this situation, my opponent has destroyed my low scale. I could use the effect to switch my Purple Poison Magician into the scale. Or conversely, I need an additional monster on my turn 3 to combo. I could summon my Black Fang. It's just too slow, too situational. You could use it as a form of disruption on your opponent's turn, like you activate it, and then when they try and attack directly or something, you can put out your Purple Poison. Situational. Why, oh why, is Pendulum Reborn a trap card? If this was a spell card, it would be a staple one of in every deck that uses pendulum monsters. It is nuts. Special summon one face-up pendulum monster from your extra deck or one pendulum monster from your graveyard. This is nuts. It's just too slow, and it's probably going to get popped before you can use it. Too slow, kind of situational. It's just the problem with a lot of these cards. If this was a spell card, though,
So that is today's video. How many of these have you tried to use? How many of these do you use? Were they successful? Next week, Odd Eyes. Most likely, if the rest of my cards get here like they're supposed to. I'm also filming a new series with my friend Bevan. He also does YouTube. He likes comics and figures. He does YouTube videos on them. And he's learning how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And play heroes. We're going to call it Yu-Gi Zero to Hero. Like Hercules from the Disney movie. Again, join the Facebook group at Yu-Gi Leo on Facebook. No, not at, just search it. You can find me on Twitter as LeoLondon23. And please check out my Patreon when it goes live at the end of this month.